Alrighty. Well, I'm happy that I finally got around to doing this review because I meant to do it last night, but I didn't get around to it because I was working on a journalism story for my freelance job with the Fairfax County Times, and you can look up the paper to see the articles I've written up until last week. This week's article will be posted on Friday, but yeah, I ended up having to get my deadline extended to today, so that's why I wasn't able to film anything last night because I was trying to put the story together, and it's a long story that is very irrelevant to this review. So I'm just gonna stop talking. I've almost wasted an hour on this review. I almost wasted a minute. God, if this thing took an hour for me to film, holy shit. Okay, now it's a minute. Anyway, um, so this is a review of the one of the latest superhero films in the superhero genre craze that's been going on since Iron Man, Shazam. That movie's full of shit. I'm supposed to turn into a superhero. Any anyways, um so the movie, to outline the plot for maybe the small handful of you who for some reason watch my channel but still don't know about the movie. The movie is basically about this kid, Billy Batson. Um, Interesting name. How he's trying to look for his mom that he's lost track of since he was a kid. He ends up in a foster home and he ends up gaining superpowers through some weird magical hocus pocus or whatever. So, will Billy use his powers for good? And will he accept his new family, or will he continue on a self destructive path that he's been on since early childhood? So, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Yes, this movie is a lot like Big. We got the 14-year-old who turns into a 30 something superhero. There's even a scene in the movie where they do a little tribute to Big where uh, Shazam is dancing around on a piano trying to escape a bad guy. It's one of those little small floor electric pianos that you see in Big. I honestly thought that they were going to stop and do a really weird tribute to it, but I guess that was just the reference was the tribute. But then again, we already got a tribute enough in and of itself from the plot line. So I think one thing I really love about this movie is the parallel story arcs between our main hero and our main villain, because Billy Batson, he's really has a lot of abandonment issues, so it's really hard for him to connect to and trust people who genuinely are trying to help him, but since he never really had a family or any friends to speak of, he doesn't really know how to interact with other people. He's street smart, but aside from that, that's pretty much the only thing he has a high level of at the beginning of the movie. And the story arc he goes through is learning to accept help and loving arms from other people, learning to understand that you can't always fight your fights alone. Sometimes you need a little bit of help. And then the villain, who kind of has the opposite problem, who's, from what we've gathered, was kind of spoon fed everything along as a kid, and now he wants vengeance on his father, who was very hard on him for not taking his own shots in life. And then we see a guy who's trying to become independent but going down a dark path with a message that his tough father was kind of trying to teach, but he just missed the mark completely. Um, so I really do like the parallels, and I do like the arc of the superhero more, because not only does Billy have to learn to be more caring and more trusting, but he also has to learn more about responsibility and putting others' needs before his own, which I mean that is kind of a basic character arc, but with a lot of these basic storylines, if you can execute it well and make the movie entertaining, then it doesn't matter if the story's been done a million times. That's what I would always say about movies that have cliches or overused storylines. If they can make the cliches or the storylines work to their advantage, I don't really care how repetitive the ideas are. Um, what I really like about this movie is that the trailers would have you believe that this is meant to be some goofy, lighthearted, comedic superhero film. And while it is that, for the most part, there are also a lot of moments, I'm not going to give it away, there are a lot of moments that are kind of dark. And there are a few death scenes that look like something out of Indiana Jones. But that's as far as I'm going to get into spoiler territory. Um, so I think the movie. Well, when I went into this movie, I knew there were some dark scenes in it. I was really scared that this movie was going to poorly handle both tones and make it a jumbled mess. But the movie actually did a good job at focusing on the dark stuff and the lighthearted stuff, and it gave it. I wouldn't want to say an equal amount of screen time, but just the right amount to keep the movie from being tonally confused. And I actually do really appreciate that a lot. And I think this is one of the few times I've seen a PG-13 movie that actually warrants a PG-13 rating. That's a whole other video for another day, the rating system. Um, and I will say this, there's really not a whole lot of flaws in this movie because it is meant to just be a lighthearted film with a dark tone from time to time. The only real complaint I would have about it is that the bullies in the movie, they seem. I'll address the other elephant in the room. The main complaint everyone seems to have is that the bullies do seem to be a little one note. And I mean, I can kind of see why that'd be a problem because the film is trying hard to be as realistic as it can with this really ludicrous story. But having cartoon character school bullies beating up kids for no real reason. Yeah, that is kind of Stephen King bully tropes. Just have irredeemable assholes harass our main characters. But aside from that, the one more positive thing I can say about this movie is that Zachary Levi, who plays the adult version of Billy Batson and plays Shazam, he actually did a really good job at trying to portray a 14-year-old who who's trapped in a man's body. And I mean, I can only imagine that he must have acted out the scenes after watching the child actor playing the kid version of Billy. I think the kid version of Billy probably acted out the scenes, and then Zachary Levi just sort of copied that because that was the same method that Tom Hanks did in Big. He had David Moscow, who played young Josh, act out a scene, and then Tom Hanks would just reenact that scene with his own goofy charm. And yeah, I really think this is a good movie. My only real my only other complaint with this movie is that it came out last week. So by the time Avengers Infinity War comes out, people are just going to forget about this one, I think, because it's not a part of the Marvel Universe. But DC has finally released a few good superhero movies with Wonder Woman 2 years ago and Shazam. So maybe DC does have something left in the tank with their live action movies. But time will tell. So I'm really happy that you guys tuned in to watch the review. I'm not sure what I'm reviewing next week, but it might be. We'll see. It might be a Graffiti Bridge or it might be something else. I haven't completely decided yet. It really just depends on what happens between now and next week and this weekend. So